Hello and welcome. My name is David Boucher. I'm a Customer Success Manager with Skillable, and today I'm going to introduce you to how to include performance-based testing within your labs with the variety of different scoring and questions that are available. Now, if I switch to a running lab, what I'll do is, first of all, I'll talk through some of the more traditional features, such as, the multiple choice, fill in the box, then mention a couple of new features, which is grouping and randomization. Then importantly, I'll come on to the activity-based assessments. Now, this is really where the industry is going at the moment. What these allow you to do is to test real-world practical skills by asking the student to complete a task and then running the script to validate that it was completed successfully. Then I'll show you how to pull in Github Instructions. So you're actually creating the instructions, putting them on an external instruction source, and then pulling them into the lab, either at the start or actually while the lab is running. Then I'll take you through activity outcomes, which is where the student can then decide which direction they want to go. There's different paths through a lab. The student decides which direction they want to take. And I'll briefly show you the back end and how scoring is turned on. Okay, so first let me just log in here. Okay, so first up, multiple choice single answer. Now, I've actually configured this so that the student can actually take the question within the lab itself. Obviously, in the exam, you'd probably turn this off, but it also allows you to configure it to allow retries too, which is a nice feature. Now, multiple choice, multiple answer. Well, I'll get this one wrong. Then I'll go back and get it right. So I always found it was nice to include at the end of every page a couple of questions just to focus the student on maybe something important, and also included some sort of feedback. So if they got it wrong, you could suggest, well, perhaps go back and look in section 2 or look in this folder, and then they could try that and then come back and have another go at the question. Next up, fill in the box. So what is the southernmost? So it's the first one is exact match. So the answer to this is Antarctica. There we go. And then the next one uses what are called regular expressions. So, for instance, what are the colors of the British flag? Now, ordinarily, I would say red, white, and blue. But what happens if I say red, blue, and white? How do you write a question which will search for the correct answer regardless of the way that it's presented? And regular expressions allow you to do this. So just to show you, so there's red, blue, and white. Okay. And another way of presenting it, red, white, and blue, but with commas in between. And, okay, got it right again. And just to show you that it's working properly, I'll put in a wrong answer. There we go. Next up, we have activity groups. So this is where I've defined 3 questions, and it randomly picks 2 from the 3, and also randomizes the answer sequence. Now, what this allows, if you're an exam provider, you might have 1,000 questions, and for an exam, you pull out 100 to present to the student. That allows you to do this, and randomizing the answers prevents brain dumping as well. So if I don't know what the answers are, but as you can see, just try that. Next up, you can actually include HTML code in your questions. So here I'm asking, where's the smiley face? Well, there it is. And next up, we now get on to activity-based assessment. So here it is. It's asking me to create a file on the desktop, okay, called test, not text. Now, if I click on this button here, it will run a small PowerShell script, which will look on the desktop, has that file be created, and feedback accordingly. Now, when I click on the button, you will get a status indicator. Usually only takes a couple of seconds. And just to show you that it is working as intended, I'll give it a random name. Click on the button again. Okay, so I got it wrong. Next up, a bit of randomization. So if I click on this button, it will add a random number of text files to the desktop. In this case, it's only offered 1. And the next question is, how many are there in total? Well, there's 1 plus the one I created, so that's 2. And check your answer. Now, randomization can be used in a number of interesting ways. A good example being, perhaps you might create a lab which could break in 1 of 5 different ways. And the student clicks on a button, something breaks, they have to work out what it is and then go and fix it. Next up, we have the Github Instructions. So you can put your instructions up in an external instruction source, Github being the most popular one, And then you can pull those instructions in either at the start of the lab or in this instance, while the lab is running. So what I've done is I've created some instructions where it says, what's your favorite food? Well, it's actually cheese. Click the button, it will then go and create a text file, there we go, on the desktop. My favorite food is cheese. Now what I do is come up to this drop down. If I click on Spanish, it'll pull in the Spanish instructions off GitHub, and then I can go in and put in the Spanish version of cheese. As you can see, the button text is changed to Spanish as well. And there we go, it's created a text file in Spanish. Next up, we have activity outcomes. So this is interesting. This allows you to define the student to choose different paths through a lab. Now, an example might be you could create a sort of scenario which is sort of a mini adventure. So the students at a crossroads and they then decide which direction they want to take, or perhaps you create a cybersecurity lab with multiple different ways of attacking a particular target, and the student chooses which one they want to choose. Or for instance, in this example, about 5 years ago, I did the CISSP exam. What they'd just done is change from a 6-hour sort of marathon to a 3-hour adaptive exam. Now, what an adaptive exam is that it'll ask you a question. If you get it right, you get a harder question. If you get it right again, you get an even harder question. If you get it wrong, you get an easier question. And statistically, they can quite quickly work out what level you're performing at by the difficulty of the questions that you're answering. This is a very simple example. So first up, it says, what is 1 + 1? Well, I'll get that wrong. It will then give me another simple question. But if I go back and I get it right, it'll give me a harder question. Now, if I get this right, it'll do an assessment of my level of ability and then suggest what I should then do. So I know the answer to this is actually 13. Very good. Now proceed to Algebra Lab 001. Okay, very simple example, but hopefully it demonstrates the actual feature and what you could then do with it. Okay, so as you can see, it says end your exam. Now, if you've got performance scoring fully turned on, it will then say submit, and then it will be submitted for grading. Now, if I click on the hamburger menu and edit the instructions, I'll just show you where the questions are defined. So here we have what we call the IdealX editor. And then if I scroll down, you can see these are the questions. They're inserted as what are called lab replacement tokens, which are all listed here. But actually, the best way to do this is to come up to the lightning bolt, and this is where the questions are defined. And there's the complete set, and then they can be inserted from here. So to show you, well, firstly, scoring is fully turned on. So this then makes it obviously a performance-based testing lab, and you can choose to toggle the various options. I've got it fully turned on, so the detailed results will be presented to the student at the completion of the lab. Now, you can obviously choose to turn that off, but the results are stored within each lab instance that's launched, and you can come back and extract that information at any time in the future, either through the user interface or by doing API requests. Anyway, I'll leave that fully turned on. Now, here it was the question group. So there's 3 questions, and it randomly selects 2 from the 3. I'll show you the most simple type of question, which is this multiple choice single answer. And this is the basic template. So there's the question, choice of question type, the various possible answers, and there's the correct one. You can choose to add it to the group if you want, and there's various other configurable options too, and you can also provide feedback to the student. Come down, I'll then show you the regular expressions one. So what are the colors of the British flag? And this was the regular expression, which was search for the red, white, and blue pattern in any particular order. I'll then show you the activity-based assessment. So this is where, if I scroll down, what it is, there's a simple PowerShell script, looks on the desktop, is a file called test.txt, and then feeds back accordingly. Okay, so that's a quick, and lastly, the activity outcomes. So if I just edit this one and scroll down, so this was where, if I answer the question correctly, it would take me to one particular page. If I get it incorrectly, it takes me to a different page. So then you can define various different pathways through the lab. Okay, so that's a very quick introduction to the variety of scoring features you can include. And if I now click on Submit, submit for grading, and then in a couple of seconds, it will come back and present the complete breakdown of every question that was answered, whether it got it right or wrong, what the correct answer was. And as I said, this information is all stored and you can extract it at any time in the future. Okay, thank you very much for your time today, and I hope to see you soon.